Welcome everyone to Swimming with Sharks Adventures in Sales Ops. My name is Will Smith and I'm your host for today's adventure. We have a great show for you today. Shout out to everyone who is joining us online, and thank you for those of you that are listening to our podcast. That's right. We take this show and we convert it into a podcast for you to listen to on Apple Podcasts or wherever you enjoy, maybe on even Amazon Music because they have podcasts now. So wherever you're tuning in, we thank you for joining us today. Please let us know where you're tuning in from. If you are online with us, whether on ManoByte's Facebook page or ManoByte's Twitter feed, on Periscope, or if you're with us on YouTube, please give a shout out to us here on Swimming with Sharks, Adventures in Sales Ops. And thank you, of course, as always, for joining us. We really appreciate you being here because this show is not just for us, but this is for everyone that's joining us. This is for everyone to learn from together. So please let us know if there is a way that we can improve the show for you. And for those of you that are sales ops professionals, if you want to talk and come on this show and we can have a great conversation about what you're seeing in your sales operations, in your space, please let me know, get in touch, and we can all get together, no problem. So let's jump into today's adventure. We got a great show for you. Today's adventure, we're going to start with a word of the week. And this week, yes, once again, there are so many acronyms in our sales and marketing venue. There's so many acronyms, it's so difficult sometimes to keep up with all of them. And so what we are going to do here is we are going to start with the word of the week, which is an acronym. And we'll get to that in a second. Then the highlight of the show, I'm so excited to have Sammie with us. This is one of ManoByte's own. This is one of our own sharks. And so I'm so excited to have Sammie with us and to share some of her stories and what she's seeing in sales. She is a business growth advisor with ManoByte. And so it's great to have her on the show. Then we're going to go into our power play. I got a question for you before we wrap up our show, which is the way we always wrap up our show. And then, of course, until next time, next Tuesday at 2 when we are live, we ask you to engage with us and start a conversation with us. It doesn't have to be over email. Get on our socials and let's have a conversation. So let's jump into today's adventure here on Swimming with Sharks, and that is the word of the week. This week, I said it before, and I'll say it again, it is an acronym. There are so many acronyms out there, and so it's really tough sometimes to keep track of them. And so today's word of the week, the acronym is ERP. And of course, ERP does stand for something, and that is Enterprise Resource Planning. I'll say it again. ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. And so in order to really understand what an ERP is, let's all just kind of take a step back and let's try to understand and think about what are all the different processes that go into running a business. Now, for those entrepreneurs out there, you are going to understand that better than anyone else. You are going to understand that it takes a lot, whether it's inventory, whether it is HR, whether it is managing your orders, whether it is your customer relationship management tool, your CRM. There's a lot that goes into running a business. And so a lot of times, and we talked about this a few episodes ago with Renee DeJong from PSO Hub, a lot of times in order to try to get all these different softwares together and working, and in order to try to get them all connected, we're trying to automate a lot of things so that we can save ourselves time. But what ends up happening is all these different tools, all these different softwares, they end up just creating more, having to maintain them, having to try to connect them, troubleshoot them. It ends up not saving us time, but costing us more time. And so what an ERP does, or what ERP software does for you, is that it helps integrate all of these functions. And a lot of times that is through a very central feature, and that is a shared database. And so it's used by a lot of different units, a lot of different functions, but this multi-function shared database, well, what does it do for you? And frankly, an ERP is going to bring it all together, and it's going to help you synchronize your reporting. It's going to help you with better automation. And so with all these different resources and softwares all working together, and ERP brings it all under one software roof, so to speak, all under one house. And so this enterprise resource planning software, there's a couple of solutions that are out there. One that we're pretty familiar with here at ManoByte is Netsuite. And of course, Sammie's going to tell you a little bit more about that when we talk to her in just a few seconds even. And so today, our word of the week is ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. Now let's move on to the highlight of today's show, and that is our interview with Sammie Bennett. I am so excited because I remember when I first started at ManoByte, we go around, part of our onboarding is we talk with everyone on the team. And one of the first things that Sammie said to me was, well, I actually recently summited Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, Africa. And it's one of those things where you're like, wait, go back. Hold on a second. That's the first thing you say to somebody. I mean, obviously after saying hello, but that's what Sammie did. And I was like, whoa, you have to tell me this story. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, those of you that are tuning in today, those of you that are listening, you will get to hear that story. So you're in for a real treat. She has also, now, I don't know how you celebrate your birthday. Maybe you think about your party or whatever you're doing. Me, I recently celebrated a birthday last week, and for me, that was ice cream cake. Sammie, on the other hand, there's a connection here. For her birthday in December of this year, she will be treating herself to running a 50K ultra trail marathon. That's how she's celebrating, ladies and gentlemen, because this girl is fit and she is cut, so watch out. She leads the only all-female trail running group based in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so it is called the Trail Sisters. So if there are any other Trail Sisters in the Grand Rapids area, if you would like to join Sammie, get in touch with her here at ManoByte. She is passionate about mental health and raises awareness. Why does she do all this crazy stuff? Why is she running a 50K ultra trail marathon? Why does she lead this group? Because these challenges, these physical challenges, these the way that she kind of raises awareness about mental health is through these things. So some people will do one thing, they'll write a check, they'll donate, which is great, but Sammie really brings it to life through these challenges. So mad props to her, a lot of respect for her. She is, and after all that, she is the business growth advisor with ManoByte. So please, everyone, please welcome to the Shark Tank, Sammie Bennett. Welcome, Sammie.
Hey there, Will. Thank you for that intro.
You know what? You provided the information, and it's just like I said, when I first met you, I was like, this person's pretty interesting. So tell us about, I'm excited for everyone to hear this story. Tell us about Mount Kilimanjaro. Give us the story here.
Yeah, so this was all part of a leadership program that I started about a year ago today, actually. So it's a 6-month-long program. So I summited in January. And it was just kind of fell into my lap a little bit. I was looking for a challenge to do. As you can tell, I'm a little obsessed with some active type of lifestyle.
Adrenaline junkie.
Just a little bit. But the program is actually called Mountains and Marathons. And I had ran a marathon in my life, kind of started my fitness journey through running. Nice. And I was kind of like, you know what, like maybe I'll check it out and see what this is all about. Maybe run a marathon with this crew. And then they had shared with me that their next retreat was going to be Mount Kilimanjaro. And they were like, yeah, that's going to start here in like a month and a half. And I was like, ooh, that's okay, let's do it. I was like, I've never done anything like that before, but if I'm going to do it, at least I'll do it with a group of people and
there you go.
Be supported and, gain some leadership qualities along the way. And it was kind of part of my mental health journey this last year. So, it was definitely the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It took us four days to summit, and then it was about 2.5 days to get back down. But it was with an incredible group of people. I mean, we were kind of all around the world. I've got friends now in Australia. I've got friends in Dubai, Germany. Here in the States, I'm actually in Utah currently right now. I'm going to be meeting up with one of my members for dinner tonight. So very excited. Nice. I've got friends now from this. There was 8 of us and couldn't have done it without them. I mean, there's so much physical strength that goes into something like that, but even more so mental.
Absolutely. Phenomenal. That is great. I love how you just start. He just said, well, it's starting in a month and a half. Let's just go for it. Just don't even think. So often we get, that analysis paralysis. Well, this has to happen and then that has to happen. And you just go for it. Just grab it and go for it. I love it. That's terrific. Great story. So tell us about bringing it to, I guess, to a few more pedestrian things. But of course, you do have an exciting role at ManoByte as a business growth advisor. So how do you explain to someone in your family what you do? How do you explain that to them?
Yeah, being in the, software and technology industry, it's always a bit challenging to explain. I always go like, hey, do you know what ERP is? Or do you know what a CRM is? Like, just as you said, like everything has an acronym and everyone's kind of like, if they're not in the world, it's like, no, I don't know what that means. And so the best way I can break it down is that we work with mid-market manufacturing as our target client. And I help those people or those companies look at evaluating current systems and potentially integrating software solutions. So we obviously have a few different partners and different ecosystems of business, but we like to make sure that, what they're specifically looking for goal-wise, that we can help implement solutions that make sense. So if what we have to offer doesn't actually fit with their growth goals, and, we sit down and have a conversation about it and be real and consult. And, as you know Kevin very well, as I do too. And most people here may know Kevin now. He is a technology genius. He knows every software solution out there. And so we can actually have those frank conversations and go, we are a partner here, but, this one might fit you a little bit better. And we are okay with doing that because we're here to help and become that solution and become that resource for those individuals. And so that's kind of how I explain to people. I'm like, I get to help people every day in the technology space.
There's one thing that you said there that I think needs to be pointed out, and that is you said, I help mid-market manufacturing companies or people. I help people. And I think, as we go on through this interview, I want our listeners to really pay attention here, because you'll notice that Sammie has she's conversational. She talks about people. And if you do want to get to know a little bit more about Kevin Dean, the CEO, president of ManoByte, that's episode 1 of Swimming with Sharks, everyone. So we interviewed him first, of course. And of course, now we have Sammie, our business growth advisor, one of our business growth advisors here. So I love that you say people. And so that leads me to my next question, because instead of saying companies, you kind of corrected yourself there. You were like, I help people, companies who need this. But really, I mean, what's a company without people in it? I mean, you're not selling to the building. And so that leads me to my first question here. What should somebody in your space, what should they stop doing? If you're in sales, what should you stop doing right now?
Selling. I mean, it was... And I know that sounds funny, and that sounds like kind of like, okay, like that's your job. And
right, exactly.
When I first started my job with ManoByte, this was my first real, like, this is a sales job. This is what you do. And so I kind of was like, yeah, I got to be salesy. This is what we offer. This is what I got to pitch. And it was just, very hard for me in the beginning, because I was sitting here being kind of inauthentic, because I was like not really getting to utilize my strengths in those conversations, not because what we have to sell it doesn't work. It was just, it became kind of this script that I made up in my mind that I had to be, I have the best thing for you. And if you don't buy this, like, you're not going to succeed. And it's like, that's not always true for everyone, because it's not cookie cutter. And so my advice would be to stop being cookie cutter and to just be yourself and have confidence that what you are offering and what you have is a solution for some people and enough people in the world, that will make sense and will convert to clients, but it's not always going to be for everybody. And that's okay. And it's okay to close that book and go, you know what, I couldn't help that person, but maybe this person can help that person, and I can help somebody else along the way, so that's my advice.
Absolutely. It's funny you say that, because in last week's episode with Kyle Jepson and the HubSpot, who's with the HubSpot Academy, he said the same thing. Don't be afraid to just be yourself. And I love that you are humble enough to say, yeah, when I first started, I felt like I had to put on this persona that, I had to be someone else in order to make a sale. And when you said that, I don't know if you've ever watched Friends, but I, of course, watched it when it first came out, the show Friends, in the 90s. And of course, when it was on Netflix, I binged it again with the family. But Chandler had this one episode where he had this Chandler laugh, and that was his work laugh. And Monica totally called him out on it. Like, who are you? Who are you pretending to be? And I think we think, well, this is my job. I can be someone else outside of this. We put on this persona that I have to be salesy. And I love that you were able to not only admit that, but also identify it, name it, claim it, and move on from it. So what's something that you just passionately disagree with in sales that you've seen out there? What do you disagree with in sales?
A few things. I think, and kind of like what I just said, that cookie cutter mentality of just kind of being repetitive. I think that you constantly have to evolve in the sales world. So, go a couple of weeks and try a new way of, going about things if you aren't making those connections. But after a couple of weeks, if you're still not making those connections, you got to switch it up. It's constantly evolving, and it can't be the same. And I think that some people kind of get stuck in that same rut, like, oh, I'm going to make my 50 calls today and, check that box and move on. And it's like, no, like, we're in a very crazy time right now where a lot of people are now working more virtual. They're using technology to enhance their day-to-day. And you can't just keep doing the same thing, because then how are you going to stand out amongst, some of your competitors? So if everybody's doing video email, which is the big hot thing right now, it's like, okay, let's jump on and see if it works for you. But like, if it's not working, you got to figure out a way to get creative and stand out again, just be yourself.
Yeah, I can. That video, I can definitely attest to that video kind of marketing. That, oh, if I just put up a video, that's the secret sauce. But if you're just being fake on video, you're just being fake on video. If you're not being authentic, then and trying to do the same thing over and over again, then it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
I think that yeah. So what are you doing with video? You know, you said that's the hot thing right now. What are some of the things that you're doing in video in your sales process and what you're doing? And I shouldn't say sales process because really you have conversations with people. So what are you doing with video and how have you changed over the last few months?
Yeah, I mean, you can get so creative with the video. I think it allows you to create an actual connection with who the person is on the other end instead of just an email or phone. So I try to bring my personality into my videos when I do them. I've gotten really good at writing backwards because then I hold up signs that say like, like, hi, like, do you have 5 minutes for me or something? Like, just being quirky and funny is something that's going to get their attention. I think showing that you also do a little bit of research on the company. So if you're pulling up their webpage and you can show in the video that, hey, I was just looking at your website and saw this one thing. I think that's awesome that you guys are doing that. I have a couple thoughts. There's just so many different ways of going about it. Make it personalized for the other person because they really actually don't care about you. They want to hear more kind of like how you can help them. So how can you bring it back to them? So that's kind of what I try to do in my videos. But also, again, just trying to maintain that, like, this is me, this is who I am and my personality.
Absolutely. One thing that people love hearing about is themselves. So if you're able to say, hey, I was looking at this, that is about you and bring that, that authenticity, but also value to them. I love that. That's fantastic. So tell me about your videos on LinkedIn, because I know you've stepped it up a little bit over the past few months. So tell me what you're doing in there.
Yeah, so those usually are like on the fly, like all of a sudden something interesting will come across my screen or like, hey, Will, you sent me a couple of articles before I read and I've been like, well, that was really cool. Like I want to share that with people. And so, yeah, LinkedIn will just kind of be like a really organic, I read this awesome statistic or this client of ours is doing something really cool. I want to share it or, hey, I just have a really random thought and maybe you guys want to listen to it. So it kind of goes back and forth. My recent one was just about our Netsuite integration, Netsuite Hubspot integration that we did here at ManoByte. I was really inspired by that. And then we were backed up, by our friends at HubSpot, the importance of that type of integration. So, as soon as that stuff kind of comes up and, there's a lot of things that are happening right now. Everyone's coming out with this next new thing. And so it's kind of like, well, if I can share that information and be the first one to kind of like jump into that and start a conversation, I have things to share and to teach people, but I have so much to learn too. So by jumping on with that quick video of just like asking for help or just like sharing a little bit of information, I always learn so much more from that.
I have to ask you this question. How many takes do you usually do for one of your LinkedIn videos? Now be honest, how many takes does it take?
I will say no more than 5. I've done as many as 5 before I've done it before I'm like talking and I'm like, and I just stutter over my words and I was like, dang it, that one was so good. And so usually, like between like 3 to 5, never on the first go, but it's always with good intention.
Yeah, never on the first go. It usually, but I would think, and I don't know, maybe you and I are similar in this, but if I were to create a LinkedIn post, for example, I would be worried about the words and typing and it would take me a good 20 minutes at least to come up with something. Oh, I need to add this in. I need to add that in. Whereas similar to your let's go to Mount Kilimanjaro. You just kind of put on the phone and just say, all right, here we go. This is it, and let's see how we do on this take. Obviously, you didn't have to go up the mountain 5 times. However, when it comes to creating a LinkedIn video, I get what you're saying. That's those of you that don't know Sammie, definitely follow her on LinkedIn. She's got some great videos. And another thing that always impresses me, and I'm going to compliment you a little bit here, Sammie, but you always ask a question, and that's what social media is about, being social. And so even though it's, people say, oh, well, it's buttoned up LinkedIn, you got to be serious. No. There was one post that you asked about what are some of your favorite books, and you got a lot of interaction. People just want to share their experience, and that goes back to talking to people, as you mentioned before.
Yeah.
So all right, now let's bring it down a little bit. What failure have you experienced and you think that a lot of people are headed for as well in the space in sales, really?
Yeah, I think that, I'm still learning. I would still consider myself to be very, very new to sales, but in the beginning, again, just like I would jump on the phone and I remember just like freezing up all the time and being like, I didn't have anything really prepared, but I thought I had to be this certain person or say these certain things. And so I think, overthinking, I think that just kind of bringing it back to what you just said about like of me just jumping in and deciding to do things. That's how I kind of combat any kind of fear, is just doing and not allowing myself to even have a moment to second guess what I'm about to say or what I'm about to do, because it gives me the confidence that I need. Like I have all the answers mostly within. I'm obviously like still learning, but like I know enough here to be in this space to share and to help. And so I think one of the biggest failures that people can get into with sales is overthinking it, creating that playbook and writing everything down to a T and writing those scripts out. It's like, it's helpful to have an idea, but don't rely on that and read from that verbatim day after day after day, because it's not going to bring your personality to it. It's not going to give any relatability to your client.
That's great advice, especially trying to plan everything out. Like so many things, we're creatures of habits. We want everything to work a certain way, and if you try to plan it out, guess what? You're just hiding behind that plan, and your true self isn't coming through. I love that. That's really good advice. I think a lot of times we get like too focused on the plan and the script and, like hitting numbers. What about hitting numbers and, like just trying to get short-term goals? I mean, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's another thing too. I love the idea of having a goal in mind and having something to work towards, but not necessarily calling it quits once you hit that, or feverishly trying to get, check that box or like make those calls throughout the week. Like you can have those goals, and obviously higher call volume in the sales world is going to convert at some point, but it's like, that's not always the answer. And so when you let those numbers kind of weigh heavy over you to validate how you're performing or how you're doing, it's going to hold you back. You have to be able to adapt and work in a market where, I mean, things are going to change. Things are changing every day as we know it this year. This has been a crazy year. So like you have to be able to be like, and I hate to use the word pivot because I know everyone's using that word right now, but be able to pivot, in those moments and go, okay, yeah, well, I didn't hit my numbers this week, but I also had these really great calls and conversations that took up a little bit more time. And that's why I didn't get my calls. And so I used to kind of be like, oh no, like I'm looking at my call list and I'm like, oh, I'm going to submit my calls this week. And it wasn't enough, but I also had some really great meetings and got some new clients. So like, how is that a bad thing? At the end of the day.
Quality over quantity. Quality over quantity. That's a great little nugget right there. I like that. So tell me some things that you absolutely cannot live without. If you don't have these things, then just you're going home.
Yeah. CRM. So HubSpot is my favorite tool in the world. I live and breathe in that. My task queue is what keeps me focused throughout the day. I do all my calls in there. I mean, we're doing high call volumes all the time. It's hard to keep up with, a lot of stuff. And so the CRM tool is my favorite. And then my iPhone, because my iPhone can allow me to stay connected, doing those LinkedIn videos or the social media stuff. But then I also can still access my CRM on there too, because HubSpot has an app.
Right.
So the iPhone is so important to me. Yeah.
So HubSpot, CRM, and iPhone. Those are, if Sammy's got that, Sammy's you're doing okay. So that's awesome. I like that a lot. I got to say, so many people they underutilize those sales tools in the HubSpot CRM. And yeah, it'll save you a couple of seconds here and there, when you're putting together your task queues or things like that. But those seconds over time, they add up and they turn into minutes, and then you're able to, it's just such a nice flow. Obviously, I'm a fan too. I definitely agree with you on both those points. CRM and an iPhone, which I haven't checked out today's launch event yet, but it's definitely in the cards after work.
I was just about to say, New iPhone 12 information today. I'm a huge Apple nerd, so
Yes,
I'm very
yep.
excited about this.
Exactly. Talk about the value of branding. You got two super fans
Mhm.
on this show right here. So, oh, that's great. So tell me, you've so much going on that you're outside, you're athletic, you're doing all these different things. You're working it here at ManoByte. What are some of the cadences or rhythms or things that you do on a regular basis that that really strengthen you, that really help you? Cadences and rhythms.
Ooh, oh, I'd like to consider myself somewhat of a routine person. I try not to hold on to the routine too much, as I mentioned before. That can kind of derail you a little.
Right, right.
Um, I live, like I said, I live and breathe in that CRM on a professional standpoint. That to me is what keeps me focused at work. But then balancing the rest of it too, I use a lot of different technology. I'm huge into using technology to enhance your life. And so I use something called Todoist, which is like a daily to do, digital to do list.
Nice.
Kind of my one thing. One thing I adopted in my leadership program with mountains and marathons is it's a daily compass too. So I've got that. So I kind of always check in with
Nice.
my compass, which just I've created some morning rituals, evening rituals, and then daily choices. And then I can put some weekly tasks in there. And then between my Todoist and that, and then my CRM, I'm fully functional.
There you go.
And most of it's become kind of second nature without having to check in too much. But it's always nice to just every couple of days I check in and make sure I'm staying on top of stuff.
I've always been told that if you have the systems in place, the processes that the cadences that are set up for yourself, and maybe you agree with this, or maybe you disagree, but I've always been told that if you have those things set up as kind of your foundation, then you are able to do those impulsive things, what some would consider impulsive, or the things that you can go off that cadence easily because it's already been set up and it's easy to go back to it. Would you agree with that or disagree?
100% agree. Yep.
Nice. Nothing else. Yeah, that
I have nothing else
100%
to
agree.
no,
Nothing else to say about that.
it's so true though, because it's you have to trust yourself. And that was one thing that I learned this last year specifically was I was such so I have a little bit of anxiety, and I would suffer from rewriting to-do lists. I'd write down all these things that I had to do, and then I would rewrite them. And it was just trust yourself, because in your head that you have to get that stuff done. And so I have my stuff to check in on, but not feverishly constantly look at and have to
yeah.
Yes, exactly. So now I no longer rewrite to-do lists, and I trust myself. I'm oh, hey, cool, I just checked in my compass, but I've actually done half of that stuff today without even looking at it yet, And so it's kind of just it's a funny concept, but it works for me.
No, that's great. It's finding that balance where you can really just say, "Hey, did I take care of this, or did I not take care of it?" And also being able to, I find so many folks, and I used to do this as well, that I would have a list of goals, and then I forget where I put them. So if you have that consistent, the number one goal should have been make sure you keep track of your list of goals. So if you can find that nice balance where you can say, hey, I've got this, I understand where it is, and I know where it's going, and technology can just help you with that. No problem.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I love technology. And I know that some people kind of are a little bit afraid to adopt certain technologies and things, but it's a great way to just kind of slowly ease yourself into it. You don't have to be obsessive over it, but use it as a way to just kind of support. You don't have to live and breathe on it, but just have it there and go, hey, look, I've got this great tool. I'm going to use it, but I don't need to rely on this all the time.
Yeah, I love that. And that's one of the reasons why we put together kind of the power play for this weekly show. You're hey, we found this tool. Maybe it will work for you. Maybe it won't work for you. I've used certain tools or apps until I found something better. I'm still looking for that perfect to-do list app for for things. So I don't know. Maybe I'll ask you what you found, and we can talk offline for sure. So one of the things, and of course I experienced this. I kind of experienced the tail end of this. But tell me about the whole journey with ManoByte and creating that NetSuite HubSpot integration that's now available on the HubSpot marketplace. Give me some, and how are people out there reacting to it when you talk to folks? I'll be quiet. You talk.
Yeah, no, I'm like ecstatic about this. When I found out that we were developing, our developer Justin Dowdy did this, I mean, first of all, I was like, you're amazing.
Justin
Incredible.
is awesome. Shout out to Justin.
And
I don't think
like,
he's watching. He's
yes.
probably coding and
Yeah,
doing and
exactly.
working.
And I was just like, just another great thing to say about, Kevin Dean and his forward thinking. He was like, we're kind of missing this little piece in our agency, which was ERP, and adopted that immediately. And then was like, no questions, no thoughts about it. It was like, let's make this integration. And so we're actually one of the three agencies in the United States that have this integration. And so it was kind of cool. I mean, we're Grand Rapids, Michigan, and kind of a smaller agency. To be able to say that, like, I was like, guys, I'm geeking out over here. Like, I have to like scream about this and talk about this and like share it. So I kind of did that. I jumped on LinkedIn and talked about it on a video and had some really great feedback from people. And people were like, whoa, that is pretty cool. And it's also like, what's really cool about it is it's not that expensive to do. And because we are a small niche agency, like, we can work with you to customize it. So it's just, for me, I'm like, I'm so happy to be able to deliver this news to people and be like, we can do this for you at like a pretty affordable cost, and it will make things easier for you. Like, no doubt, you won't have to put stuff in NetSuite and then in HubSpot. Like, it will just talk together. And that's so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I remember that LinkedIn post. You were like, this is crazy. This is bananas, how this works and everything. And it just goes to, it's about helping people. And I can really see that. And, a lot of times when you get down into the nitty gritty of technology, well, we have an integration with an ERP and the QXY and you get all these acronyms and all these things that are happening. It can be intimidating. And I think if you just ask the questions, or if you talk to Sammy, it's very easy to do, because let's talk like humans. Let's not talk about, we can talk about technology like humans, not like robots or something out of, some sci-fi movie. It's not hard. Let's see if it's a right fit for you. So,
1,000%. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you're bringing it to everybody, and really preaching
everybody
it.
knows.
Yeah.
Well,
I know.
They know. Well, what I think about it at the end of the day really is the importance when you think about somebody's business and company. The biggest goal at the end of the day is, generating that revenue and getting the right people in place to make your business work. And so you're looking at front end operations, you're looking at back end operations, and they weren't speaking to each other for the longest time. And as technology has evolved and people are adopting more technology, it almost like created this huge gap, even more so naturally. And so it was like when we came up with this integration to kind of connect the two. So you're getting real-time financials, you're getting real-time communications to your customers and then to your vendors and all this kind of stuff. You're like front end and back end can talk to each other and it works. Like, to me, I was like, I don't know how like people can't get excited about this. I mean, Am I the only one? So yeah, it's just, it opens up a lot more possibilities for that, that a different revenue generation that you didn't know you had, or like just, I could talk for days about it. I get a little too excited about it, but it's just good. It's exciting stuff. So if this resonates with anybody, please come talk to me. We can geek out together.
Yeah, right. And not only that, if you're saving time, I'm all about efficiency. If you can save time and get this done, now you can worry about the higher level operations of your business. Is it time to present a new product? Is it time to do this? And you're not worrying about the nitty gritty. You have those systems in place by having this connection between NetSuite and HubSpot. You got your ERP set up. I'm so happy that you came on the show today to talk about it, because I'll be honest with you, I was a little bit worried that how did I do on the opening explanation of ERP? Do you want to fill in anything that I missed? Okay, good.
No, it was so good. It's such a big platform and there's so many different elements to it. It really functions every department of your company. So You did a fantastic job. I even question myself sometimes, and I know I have a lot more to learn as well. It's a lot. So no, you did great.
Thank you. I appreciate it. A little fishing for compliments there. I felt pretty good about it, but I figured if I said anything that was wrong about what an ERP is, you would instantaneously correct me. So thank you, Sammy.
Yes.
This has been great. I'm so glad you came on the show today. And if anyone wants to hear more, either about what Sammy's up to or about ERP and NetSuite and HubSpot, and you want to geek out with her, you can do that. Get in touch with her. She lives on LinkedIn. Follow her on LinkedIn. And of course, you can reach out to us here at ManoByte, and you can get in touch that way. So, Sammy, thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your trip, and
Thank you.
we look forward to seeing you when you get back. So, take care.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Sammy. See ya.
Bye.
All right, let's wrap things up. So we talked about a lot of processes today. And so today's Power Play is actually a website where you can go, and I like this because number one, it's free, and number two, it's open source and it's online. And so if you're trying to figure out your process and what that is, I definitely recommend going to draw.io. So it integrates with G Suite, with Google Drive, with SharePoint, with OneDrive, GitHub, GitLab, and Dropbox. So you're probably using one of those storage solutions, but more than that, it's shareable. And you can make some really nice looking process maps. You can really diagram your processes and your flow. And a lot of times you need to just see that visually before you can just sit down and say, okay, what's the right solution for this particular process? Or even if you don't have the process in place, if you're just imagining and if you have lists and things like that, or you're working with other partners or other entrepreneurs or anything like that, and you're not sure how you want the process to go, map it out. And so I highly recommend going to draw.io. It's beautiful. It's beautifully done. It's open source. It's online. You can share it with pretty much anyone. And it's a great way to really figure out exactly how you can figure out those processes. And so that leads me to our question of the day as we wrap up today's show. So the question is, how do you work out a process? How do you map out a process? And this is going to be more of a multiple choice. It's either A or B, or in this case, D, digitally, or P, for pen and paper. Are you the person that goes to draw.io and figures out your process that way? Or are you more of the person that sits down with a legal pad and draws it out and writes it out? What is your process of working out a process? That's the question of the week. And so engage with us online. You can answer in the comments. However you want to get in touch, let us know how you would answer this question. How do you work out a process that you're trying to work out? And how do you represent that? Do you do it digitally, or do you do it with pen and paper? That always fascinated me, how people work and how people learn and how they work out things and understand things. And so until next time, please get in touch with us. Of course, you can always get in touch with us here at ManoByte. If you want to nerd out on NetSuite and HubSpot with Sammy, you can just contact Sammy at manobyte.com. And if you want to reach out to any one of us, if you want to answer the question through Facebook, through LinkedIn, through Twitter, through Instagram, go ahead and follow us on all the socials. And we try to preach being social, like we talked about today in the show. We try to preach being social on social media because that's the point. We want to engage with you. We want to interact with you. We want to really get a good idea of who you are. And let's have a conversation because it's all about people. It is really about people. And if you have any comments about the show, or if you are a sales operations professional, or if you're in sales and you want to come on the show, we can certainly talk about that process and how you can do that. We're always looking for guests, so please get in touch if you're interested there. And so as we wrap up, we thank you very much for joining us today for this was episode number 7 with Sammy. And until next time, please join us on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock. And until next time, please, let's have a conversation, get in touch with us. And of course, may all your adventures be great. Take care of yourself and each other. Thanks, everyone.